Beyond passion, beyond mercy, beyond reason, the faceless caretakers of reality toil without end, silently struggling to preserve the tenuous balance upon which all existence depends. These voiceless forces are the Aeons, inscrutable shapers and eliminators of the multiverse. They exist beyond the understanding of most mortals, endlessly striving towards goals unfathomable even to many of the plane's eldest inhabitants. Aeons build order from the chaos of the maelstrom, seed new life upon barren worlds, and halt the rampages of forces grown overbold. They rend nations to vapor, dismantle planets into cosmic dust, and pave the way for calamities. Their ways are at one moment beneficent and at the next utterly devastating, but without any ardour, compassion or malice. Every Aeon dispassionately but determinedly strives towards the same objective, an ever-changing, amending and readjusting pursuit of multiplanar equilibrium. United in this eternal and perhaps impossible pursuit, Aeons embody the plane-spanning hands of a metaphorical omnipotent clockmaker, endlessly tuning and adjusting the myriad of gears of reality in pursuit of ultimate perfection. The balance Aeons seek in all things begins with themselves. Most Aeons embody a powerful dichotomy sustained in equilibrium. From the potency of birth and death meeting in arcanas to the philosophies of fate and freedom embodied by the Thelatos, the workings of existence take on forms and will within their living manifestations. Even the lesser Paracletus unite diverse elements of creation in their intricate orbits. Such stability reaches beyond the shapes of Aeons to inspire and direct their minds, imbuing each with a singular purpose and area of control. Thus, each embodies the realm of reality it would seek to balance, attempting to enforce a harmony as perfect as that of its physical form upon all things. The forms of various types directly suggest their abilities and objectives, with the Pleroma Aeons, for example, exhibiting the power to create or annihilate, and with such influence to alter that which has grown either too abundant or too sterile. While Aeons are not malicious creatures, they care nothing for individual beings or the struggles and emotions central to most life. The ruins of an entire city or the burning of a vast forest means equally little in their manipulation of symmetry. By the same right, creating new life or constructing defenses against an impending calamity are equally characteristic acts. For Aeons, only the final tally matters, and a land overpopulated by humanoids is just as much in need of culling as a land overrun by ravenous fungi. Just as a body's natural defenses neither have mercy nor malice for invading parasites, Aeons don't muddy their objectives with emotion. Such impartiality extends to the interactions between Aeons as well. Without culture, society, or even a memory beyond the immediate needs of the multiverse, they build no relationships and in general have no personalities beyond an automatron-like directness. A vague caste system exists, with Aeons that hold influence over greater multiversal principles acknowledged as superior by their lesser brethren. This caste system rarely translates to actual direction and obedience though. Should the acts of a greater Aeon jeopardize the works or even lives of a multitude of lesser Aeons, the efforts of the more potent Aeon proceed without hesitation. Only in matters of great essential concern do multiple Aeons cooperate, directed into doing so by the united consciousness of their race and the multiverse itself, even then rarely for long. Many mistake Aeons for friends or allies of nature and its creatures. While this might be true at times, and is definitely true if reality as a whole is considered a vast united organism, Aeons care no more for the trees of the forest than for the towers of civilization. For them, all life is life, and death is death, to be preserved or scoured regardless of its arbitrary shape. In rare cases, Aeons have been known to deviate from the whims of the multiverse. Such rogue Aeons typically arise from interacting with other races extensively, living beyond their intended times, being exposed to unusual ideas, or being forced to perform acts they would otherwise never contemplate. These Aeons typically take on extreme personalities, coming to favour one aspect of their being over the other. An Arcana is just as likely to become an artist of life as a mass murderer. Normal Aeons perceive their rogue brethren as a high-priority disturbance in the balance of the multiverse and seek the destruction of such rarities with all haste. All Aeons are bound in a state known as the condition of all, or monad, the supreme oneness with all members of the race and the multiverse itself. Therefore, Aeons exist as an extension of the multiverse, in a fashion similar to the way bones, muscles, and various other humors create a mortal. They exist as part of a greater being. When destroyed or upon accomplishing specific goals, their energies simply dissipate and become reabsorbed into the monad. They do not die, but are instead recycled. They have no discernible memories and seem to exist only in the present, arriving to repair balance. Relationships with non-Aeons are generally non-existent. They feel no sense of affliction, remorse, vengeance, or other similar emotions. Aeons deal with each task as its own, independent from all other tasks. Thus, an individual Aeon, once at violent odds with another Aeon, may, upon their next encounter, have the Aeon's full and undaunted support. Arcana. 4 grey arms project from a swirling mass resembling a giant eye, from which a tail-like appendage dangles. Arcanas bear change over the duality of birth and death. They perceive the existence of living things as crucial to maintaining cosmic balance. They also understand the profound influence living things have on the cosmos, and if left unattended, its ability to create terrible consequences. In this circumstance, life must give way to death. Arcanas wander the byways of the universe, constantly on the hunt for imbalances in life. How they judge these imbalances is not well understood by non-Aeons, and the Aeons are singularly unmotivated to justify the Arcana's decisions when inquired about them. As a result, the focus of Arcana's attacks and their attentions usually seem arbitrary or even random to most other creatures. They do not always focus their attention on the strongest or the weakest members of a group. An Arcana stands 5 feet in height and weighs 120 pounds. Its strange central body seems vaporous, but is weirdly solid and slimy to the touch. Bythus. A shimmering colourless mass congeals to form a 4-armed humanoid shape with an eye-like pattern in its torso. The Bythos are guardians of time and planar travel. Indeed, to Bythos, the act of aging is no more than a highly specialised method of travel. Although Bythos themselves have no additional method of travelling through time, they scour the multiverse, hunting for creatures that have the ability to time travel, and may have abused this ability. Far more often, though, the Bythos seek out abuses of planar travel, such as tears in reality where regions of planes overlap, or the creatures that abuse the use of such planar travel. In some cases, such distortions are ignored, but in others, a Bythos or even a full tribunal comes to assess and repair the damage. In most cases, repair is analogous to death of the creature responsible for the distortions, but placing such creatures in temporal stasis can also solve the problem. While a Bythos's body may seem to be made out of smoke and vapour, it is strangely solid to the touch, feeling not dissimilar to dry stone. A Bythos is 13 feet tall and weighs 600 pounds. Paracletus. A small cluster of shimmering lights floats through the air, orbited by multiple vibrant crystals and gemstones. While mortals possess the gift of free will, both logic and emotion influence their decisions. The Paracletus serves the Aeons as agents who connect with mortals who study the influence of emotions, particularly the dualistic nature of raw emotion, upon mortal behaviour. They wander the planes seeking mortals with particularly strong emotional or logical capabilities. Characters with high charisma or intelligence scores are of particular note. Once a Paracletus locates such a creature, the Paracletus remains nearby, studying the target's relationship with emotional and logical inputs and choices. Often, the Paracletus will use its emotion aura on the target in order to study how outside influence affect the subject. Unfortunately for the target creature, whether or not the Paracletus is helpful or harmful is, for all intents and purposes, a matter of random chance. Even through the Paracletus's complex reasoning, nothing is left to actual random chance. If presented the option, a Paracletus avoids direct combat and uses its emotion aura to influence situations. If pressed to defend itself, it flies at opponents, slamming into them and discharging an electrical jolt of energy in addition to buffeting them with crystalline components. The crystals that orbit a Paracletus are solidified aspects of logic, while the swirling vapors and lights that make up its central mass are manifestations of raw emotion. When a Paracletus is slain, both its crystals and vapors fade away to nothingness. A Paracletus could become the familiar of a spellcaster. A Paracletus familiar does not abandon its mission to observe the emotions and logic at play, but it does follow its master's orders. In this situation, the application of the Paracletus's emotion aura need not be random. Although the central mass of the Paracletus's body appears to be made out of light and energy, it is in fact solid and feels strangely like electrified flesh to the touch. Pleroma. Within the shadows of this vaguely humanoid figure stir swirling colours and spheres as if encompassed by the night sky. The Pleroma is the most powerful of all the Aeons. As a manifestation of the opposing acts of creation and destruction, a Pleroma exists in a state of flux, its very form shifting between creation and oblivion. Within the ebon folds of its vaporous cloak, one who gazes upon a Pleroma could spend days studying the continual changes of its form, which most resemble the shifting celestial bodies within the universe sped up to a pace at which the swirling of galaxies and the tumble of planets form a strange dance. Pleromas view the concepts of creation and oblivion not so much as separate processes, but rather as two parts of a cyclical passage that everything in existence must explore. Pleromas guide this progression, ensuring everything remains balanced, such that whatever is created can be destroyed, and that nothing becomes so static that the two processes slow to a halt. For everything that attains a state of semi-permanence, there must be many more things that do not, or rather that cannot ever be reformed into a state of permanence. While Pleromas believe in eternity, they understand that eternity is cyclical and infinite, and is something that repeats itself. Therefore, eternity and the infinite are states that can be changed, or altered, if only slightly. Pleromas maintain such changes that are necessary in order to keep the cosmos from becoming static and unbalanced. Both states they refer to as being the apocalypse. Of all Aeons, Pleromas possess the strongest connection to the entity or concept referred to as the monad. All Aeons believe themselves to be extensions of this entity, and while they act freely or independent of this entity, they always act within the constricts of its wills or needs. This behavior is not so much a state of servitude as a symbiosis in which the actions of the Pleromas are universally beneficial to both themselves and the entity that they are a part of. Pleromas describe the monad as the sentience of the multiverse, from which all things are created through the recycling of everything that had ever existed. Pleromas typically travel alone. Their arrival in a region almost always heralds some sort of dramatic change. They pay little mind to the wants and needs of other creatures and remain entirely focused upon their primary task. They avoid conflicts of ethics, wars, and other similar pursuits, save when manipulating such events that would help them restore the balance between creation and oblivion. Should any be so foolish as to attempt to interfere or sway their work, Pleromas immediately retaliate by bringing all of their significant powers and devastating abilities to bear until the intervention is destroyed. Thelatos. 4 bandy limbs, each splitting at the elbow into 2 3-fingered forearms, emerge from this creature's crystalline body. The strange Thelatos is the guardian of duality between freedom and fate. Slavery is no more of an issue to a Thelatos than it is true freedom, but without one, the other cannot exist. In areas where slavery is rife, a Thelatos might aid in freeing some slaves, while in regions where slavery has been abolished, This strange being works to subjugate many creatures with its own mind control-like abilities, often encouraging them to further undertake acts of slavery themselves. The Thelatos is also a guardian of fate and prophecy, and while for some creatures it may allow glimpses of the future, others who peer into the future almost seem to cause the Aeon physical pain. The Thelatos cannot explain why one seer might be allowed to divine futures while others should not. It only knows that some prophets should be denied this pursuit. The Thelatos is about 5 feet tall and weighs 100 pounds. Check the description of this video to find some stat blocks for these unique monsters for your next 5th edition game.